Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to the Modern Practice Portal Document Center training. What we're going to cover in this session today, and I'll just flick to the next slide, is we're going to introduce the Document Center. Really, document management is the core of the Modern Practice Portal, and it's really important that we understand how some things work. So I'm going to introduce some terms to you. Some of the terms we'll be working with is something called site content types. Don't worry if you don't understand it yet, I will go through it. Site fields, which is how we add what we call metadata to documents. So if you think about a document, some of the metadata it has is its name and the date it was created. But using SharePoint Online, we can add all sorts of information to that document, which makes it way easier to find, but also means we can do some cool things around the document organizer, which does automated filing. We're also going to talk about site fields. Now, the Modern Practice Portal takes a bunch of information from Workflow Max, but you're free to augment that with whatever information you need for your practice. So if I move forward, so let's talk about some terms. So there is a library called Documents, which is a library where your content, your documents, your PDFs, your emails will be stored. There's a thing called a drop-off library, and that's an area where we store what we call unknown content. So we create a bunch of rules in document management to determine where things go. If somebody doesn't know the client for a document or anything else, then you can actually store that in the drop-off library and process it later. And we'll talk about how that works a little bit later in the session. Site columns are columns of data which can be attached to documents of all types. So this is not just limited to Word or Excel or PowerPoint. We can attach additional data to emails. We can attach additional data to PDF documents. So we've really got a ton of flexibility here. So what I really want to talk through today is how we think you should start to set up your document settings. We then have site content types, which are specific types of content you can apply rules to. So we can get as detailed or as simple as we want to here, and we're going to show you some examples we've been working on with Hanson's of a pretty complex site content type hierarchy. Then we're going to talk about something called the content organizer, which is a system which is really smart. It's able to automatically file and manage the content in document management for you. And we're going to talk about how we configure it today. So not very many slides. We're going to start off by going and doing a demonstration of content types and columns. So let me flick to my screen because it's far more fun if we can actually go and do some real stuff. And let me get us connected in. Right, that should have loaded. And what you can see, which you'll hopefully be familiar with right now, is the front page of the Modern Practice Portal. What I'm going to do to configure some of these is I'm going to click on Document Center, which takes us into document management. So this should be pretty familiar to you from yesterday, and I'm just waiting it to load up for everybody. There it is. There's one addition you'll see today, which we didn't have yesterday, which is this field over here, which is Document ID. And that allows us to put an ID against every document in the entirety of SharePoint. So when we send documents out to clients, we can refer to them by the ID, not just by the document. So let's look at content types and site columns. So the way we configure this is we go into Site Actions, and then we go to Site Settings. And this is where we manage all of those things. So you see here under Galleries, we have two galleries. One is called Site Columns, and the other is called Site Content Types. Don't worry about master pages for now, it's not that important. But the two we care about are Site Columns and Site Content Types. If I click on Site Content Types, you'll see there's a whole bunch which come from SharePoint. The ones in blue are the ones that we've configured for you. So you see here, I have, if I actually scroll up to Documents, you see there's a simple document in the document content types. And we've created a type called Client Document, which is what we call a derived type. So let me try and get simple about that. Just like files and folders, there's a hierarchy of documents. And so we tend to start everything in the Modern Practice Portal with something we call a client document. And this is a document which would potentially go out to a client. So if I click on this document, you can see it's got two columns. The first is the title of the document, and the second one is the client name. Now what I'm going to add to this is I'm going to add to it the year the document was created, and we're going to create some rules around that later. So I'm going to create a new site column, and we're going to call this the tax year, and I'm going to make it a choice to make it easy for people. So we'll let that load up. If I scroll down, the next thing it's going to ask me is where do I want to put this column, and because I want to keep everything organized, I'm going to put this column into the Modern Practice Portal columns group. Then it's important to create a description, so let me write one. This is the tax year the document refers to. Right, there we go, and I'm going to put some choices. So I'll do 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. There we go, we've got a few in those. And we're going to display them using a drop-down menu, and we're going to make a default value of 2011. The last tax year. The choice down here allows me to update every content type inheriting from these types. So remember I said that client document was really the top of the tree for us. If I say yes to this, it means every document underneath that will also inherit this column, which, let's say in my practice, that's something I want to do. So I'm going to click OK. So you see now we're looking at the client document, and we can see that tax year is a column. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into tax year, and I'm going to say it's required. So when I'm filling in a client document, I need to say what tax year this refers to. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to put it in. So now we see we have this type of client document which has 3 columns, 2 of which are required, the client name and the tax year. The title of the document I've left it optional. So that looks good to me, and let me show you how that works. So what I'm going to do is go back into the Document Center, and here are my documents here, and I'm going to create a new client document. And just by clicking on the document there, and I'll show you how to make this drop-down list appear, that's going to do some thinking in the background. There it goes, it's doing a little bit of thinking, and it's going to come up with a client document. Bear with me, I'm presenting a session here, so it's a little bit slower than I'd like it to be, and I think it's gone and popped up something at the bottom I instantly dismissed, which is my bad. I apologize about that. Right, let's let that come back. Now starting over on my other screen is Microsoft Word. Right, so first time I've used this document, it's going to go and use the template I put in for that document type. And you see at the top now, I have the client properties on the server. I have the title, which I can put in. I have the client name, which I can choose from Workflow Max. And I have the tax year, which I can drop down and I can choose. So those are my options there. Now, I'm not going to save it. I'm going to do something a little bit different. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to upload a document into the drop-off library. And I'm going to show you how this kind of all hangs together. Let me just close down a couple of the things I've got open. Cancel Word, which is trying to load. Okay, I'm just going to click back here. The demo gods are not shining on me today, so let's see if I can refresh that. Retry. Here we go, back to the Document Center. Yep, let me get you another browser. My Internet Explorer has crashed, and I am using a beta copy of Windows 8, so I can understand why that would happen. So let me go back to the Modern Practice Portal, and I'll drag that across for you. There she goes. And I'll dive into the Document Center, and that should appear for you. There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload just any random document to the drop-off library, and let me choose here a Workflow Max data sheet. Now, when I submit a document, SharePoint doesn't know very much about it. I certainly haven't told it what type of document, but it's going to ask me for some information. So I'm going to say this is a client document, and it's going to ask me for some information. So let me type in workflow max datasheet. I'm going to apply it to a client. So let me get my list of clients from Workflow Max. So let me choose, for example, seeing as I've got Lipin Partners here, let me find you guys, HIJKL, Lipin's Partners, there you are. I'll click OK, and that will go and grab the information from Workflow Max and put it in, and I'm going to say this purports the tax year of 2010. When I hit Submit, what's going to happen now is the content organizer has now decided that that's a document that needs to go to Lipin's Partners, and I'll show you how that works in a second. And it's actually gone and taken it out of the drop-off library, and it's put it somewhere else. So there we go. We have created a document type, we've added columns to them, and we've actually seen it work within SharePoint. So there's a couple more things I want to cover off in this session today. The next is the content organizer. So you saw when I uploaded that document, it went and put it somewhere. Let me show you how the rules work to make that happen. Let me go back to my screen. And while that loads for you, I'll take a sip of coffee. And let me show you how that all works. If I go back to site settings, remember we had our site columns and site content types. I'll just show you how that's working at the moment. In site columns, under MPP columns, you'll see I have client name, postcode, and tax year, the one I just created. In site content types, you see I have my client document. I'll show you where that lives. That's down there. And we have a bunch of others as well. Down here, under Site Administration, we have two things, Content Organizer Settings and Content Organizer Rules. Let's go into Settings first. So first of all, this setting means that if somebody uploads content that have rules pointing to them, like our document library does, we require users to use the organizer when submitting new content, and that's so our content gets auto-filed. We have an option so it can send it to other sites. We turn that off in the Modern Practice portal. We can choose to create subfolders when a target location has too many items. So for example, if you have over 2,500 items in a single folder, we create a new folder and put it in there. We've chosen, if there's a duplicate submission, to use SharePoint versioning, but you could also choose to append unique characters to the end of duplicate file names. We've chosen not to do that. We could save audit logs of submitted content if we wanted to, and we have rule managers. So that's, for example, if a bunch of people in your practice submit information into the drop-off library and haven't filed it away, it can email your content manager so you can go in as a content manager and update that. And there are some submission points as well, but I'm just going to count from that. The submission point is quite useful if you have a modern scanner, and the modern scanner will actually use that to submit scans directly to the drop-off library. Okay, if we go into Content Organizer Rules, you can see there is one rule in my Modern Practice portal, which is called Client Documents. And if I open that, I'm going to edit it so I can show you how it works. So first of all, it's called Client Documents. It's active. We have a bunch of priorities, and the way the rule organizer works is it does the highest priority rules first. Right, we're going to say this document needs to be a client document, which is fine. And we haven't had any conditions, but we could add conditions to say if the tax year is before 2005, put it into archive. If it's after 2005, put it something else. What we're then saying is the target location is the client's folder, and we're going to get it to automatically create a folder for each value of the client name. So that means if I save something for Lipin's Partners, it goes into the Lipin's Partners folder. What I could then do is say, once it's in there, if it's tax year 2012, put it into a folder called 2012. So you can implement your own tax year folders if you want to. So we can create as many rules as we want to in there. It's important we think about them and make sure we make our rules happen the way we want to organize our documents. But that's the content organizer. And that's the automatic filing solution within the Document Center. So let's recap a little bit. We've talked about how to create site content types and site columns. We've also talked about the content organizer and how it files things. But one of the things we haven't talked about today is how to apply site content types to our document library. The reason that exists is in the Document Center, you could have multiple libraries. In our implementation of the Modern Practice Portal, we've only got one. It's called Documents. So the way we apply a content type to a library, and that gives us the drop-down list, is if we click on the library, go up to the top, and navigate to Library Settings. Right, in here, this is where we choose the content types for our library. So for example, this letter including activity statement, if I didn't want that to appear, I could actually remove that from the list of content types. So I have the opportunity to do that. I can also turn around and change which ones appear on the new button. So if I wanted to make these smaller and get rid of a few things, let me get rid of some and I'll show you how that works. So I'll get rid of all of those and I'll just leave client documents and letter of engagement. Now when I go back to the Document Center and I go to Documents and I hit New, you see I now only have those two documents available to me. So we can create all our own templates in there and go and find things. Now one of the things you'll see is also happening down at the bottom is we have the ability to browse based on some really interesting information. So I could say, show me all the client documents. And that's all the client documents I have in my library. I could say, show me all the client documents created on or after, let's say, the beginning of May. And there are no client documents created on or after the beginning of May. So you can see we can easily go and browse through, and up here we can browse through our clients. And again, I've got some filters, so I can filter within clients. I can go and browse and find things really easily. And obviously, we still have the ability to do quick searching at the top and find documents we want to find really easily. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how that lot works. Right, back to the slide deck, and I have 5 minutes. I've done content organizer rules. So that takes us through just an overview of the content organizer, the content types, and the organizer rules. What we're covering off tomorrow is the final piece, which is creating your own templates and making them work within the Modern Practice Portal. And the very last bit is migrating your existing data to the Modern Practice Portal and having it filed in the right place. So I hope that's been useful. What I'm going to do now is stop the recording and open it up to questions. So let me stop the recording now.